Hi everyone, today I want to share with you 5 best practices to keep your mouse colony healthy. If you were given a colony to manage or you are planning to start managing a colony, this video is for you. Let's start with the first best practice, which is to continuously backcross your single alleles to your wild type background. So we want to backcross our animals for 2 reasons. First, we want to keep our colony outbred. Bringing a new wild type animal into the colony is critical for this. So in practice, this is how things will look. So we start with our male founder that happens to be heterozygous. We cross it to a female that is wild type, just because there is no other allele in the colony that is mutant, so we have to cross it with a wild type. This gives us a number of pups. For example, we can have this female that is wild type and this male that is heterozygous. Then what we need to do is cross this male when it reaches adulthood to, again, other female with a wild type background. And here we repeat the process. We have different pups. This one can be plus minus, this one plus minus as well. And again, we cross with another female that is wild type. And this continues on and on and on. So typically we call this the N0, the founder generation. This is backcross N1, this would be N2, and this would be N3. The second reason to keep our backcross is to ensure that no other mutation introduced while generating the allele are spread within the line. For example, when we use CRISPR to generate a new allele, we don't know what off-target mutations have been created. So the outbreeding of the line allows us to get rid of these mutations in other parts of the genome. So let's see how these other mutations will be eliminated using this procedure. So for example, let's say that this is our chromosome where we have the mutation. Let's make it a little bit longer. And let's say we have the mutation somewhere here in the chromosome. When we backcross the animal, the next generation would only inherit half of the chromosome from the founder animal and the other half from the mother. Then when we cross again, we again have like that this remaining part will only, half of them will be retained from the original founder. So this will be n equals 1, and then n equals 2, we will have this other part. And then from this remaining part of the genome of the founder, in the next cross we will have that half of it will come from your wild type background, and so on and so forth. So with each of these generation, this region of the genome that coming from the founder is very restricted to where you have the mutation, and you can do the calculation. In the first cross, like half of the genome is coming from the founder. In the second one, this should be 1 to 2 to the 2, so this is 1/4. In the third, this will be 1/8, and here 2 to the 4, 1 in 16. So a very small fraction of the whole genome will be coming from the father, and in this way all the mutations that might be in other parts of the genome will be gradually cleared out. Okay, let's move to the second recommendation, that is keep your colony outbred as much as possible. So let's see how this would work in the practice. So we have our founder male that is heterozygous. We cross it with a female. And in the first litter, you can have 2 types of animals. For example, we can have a female that is heterozygous. You can have also animals that are homozygous for the wild type. But for the purpose of this demonstration, let's say that we have 1 female and 1 male, both heterozygous. So you could potentially mate these 2 animals, but since they are siblings, this will be 2 inbred. So the possibilities of having the deleterious mutation in the litter that arrives in any of these animals will be very high. So what we need to do is to outbred these ones before doing anything. So we will cross both the male here with a female that will be wild type, and the same here. And let's assume here that we fall into a similar situation. We have one of the pups that is a male, wild type, and then we have a female that is wild type minus. And for this breeding over here, we have a similar situation, but here this male is heterozygous and this female, let's say, is also heterozygous. So we could cross potentially these two to get a double null, and these are first cousins. So it's like not ideal, but you may start doing these breedings. So what would be best is to take this heterozygous female and cross it again with a wild type animal, and this will give you some pups, of which some of them will be wild type, others heterozygous. And the same for this one, we'll cross it with a female that is wild type. It gives us some pups, for example this male that is plus wild type and this female that is wild type. And now we can cross these ones. These ones don't have any grandparents in common, so they are very more distant from the founders. So this is a, let's say, nice mating, and again this is a okay, and you should never do this one. Okay, if you want to programmatically generate these pedigrees and calculate the inbreeding scores, check the video now on screen. Okay, let's move to the third concept, which is to know your mating options. So we want to maximize our mating options. We have the monogamous mating, where we have one male that we cross with one female. We can add now in the same cage typically a second female. This would be a trio, and this is because like the male can move on and make the other one pregnant. And typically you can only add this many adult animals in the cage for the mating because of space restriction, but you can still have some other options. That is the male rotation. So imagine that you have one male A here with females, two females that we would call them B and C. You can set up this mating, then wait a week, and you wait a week because the animals go through this estrous cycle that lasts between 4 and 6 days, in which only one day the females are able to get pregnant. So that's why you leave it a week or so. And then you can remove this A male and put it in another cage with other two females, for example, that we call D and E. And this male can continue breeding with other females. The next concept is to set up your matings at the right time. I recommend setting up males at 7 weeks and females at 6 weeks. So males start spermatogenesis as soon as they are born. So if we have this timeline in weeks, we have 0. Typically it takes 5 weeks for a sperm to be produced. So we have the sperm, but then it has to transit through an organ called the epididymis. You can have males that produce litter at 6 weeks, but typically this process of the epididymis takes longer time. So it's at around 7 weeks that most of the males would be fertile. So I'll recommend to put the males there. For the females, we have a similar story. You have their developmental time here in weeks, or at least their reproductive time. And if you super ovulate a female at 4 weeks, you will have ovulation, but it's only at 6 weeks that the majority of the females ovulate naturally. Actually, it's from 6 to 8 weeks. But the presence of a male in the cage can accelerate this. So I would say female 6 weeks, that's the optimal for them to get pregnant or start their mate. The final concept I want to discuss is to monitor your breedings. Matings do not always work, so it is important to monitor them and replace them as soon as possible. We mentioned that it typically takes a week for a female to get pregnant after the mating is set up. After the females get pregnant, it takes about 3 weeks for the pups to be born. So number 5 would be monitor your breedings. So we have here the timeline of the breedings. We always speak in weeks here. So we have like in the first week is more or less where you should get pregnant, and then you have that the animals can be born typically between week 3 and 4. So the first thing that you need to do is to check or inspect here that you actually have the females heavily pregnant or even pups in your litters, in your cages. So inspect for pups or pregnancy. So that's one concept. Then, for example, let's say that we have our animals born here just before the 4th week. Well, the females have the highest chances of getting pregnant the day after, and this would lead to a frequency of new litters of about 3 and 4 weeks. So then what you need to do is to monitor this frequency, and you typically expect the litters to come every 3 or 4 weeks. So if your mating is not giving you litters after 5 weeks, I think you might need to replace it. So we say here, inspect the frequency, replace if more than 5 weeks. And the other thing that you need to pay attention is to the litter size. So with time, the number of litters, the number of pups per litter goes down, and most of the strains give you 6 or more pups per litter. So if you have 2 consecutive litters with 3 or less animals, I would say it's also time to stop that breeding. So inspect for number of pups. So replace if 2 litters with less than 3 pups. So typically this starts to occur when females go through 6 litters or more. So that's approximately when you would like to replace them. Well, those are the 5 tips I wanted to share with you. If you like the content, please subscribe to the channel. And since you are still there, I will give you a bonus tip. After your pups are born, check whether their genotypes follow the expected Mendelian ratios. Let's see an example. So the bonus tip number 6 is monitor the genetics of the progeny. So for example, we have here one male that is heterozygous for one mutation that is being mated to a female that is wild type, and it gives us a number of pups. So for example, here we have a male, female, 2 males here, and a female. Since we are crossing an heterozygous to a wild type, we expect that half of the animals will be heterozygous and the other half would be wild type. So this is more or less some genotypes that we would be expecting for these different animals. However, sometimes you don't get this, and you can get with this breeding a situation where you have all of the animals that are wild type. So this is the genotype of all of these animals. And this is a genotype for all of these animals that is possible. However, it's unlikely for this to happen by chance. So for this type of result, you should monitor them closely, and you should probably repeat the genotype of the parents and of the pups to see that there is no misgenotyping. A third possibility that you can have is that you have impossible genotypes. So you can have wild type, you can have heterozygous, but as soon as you have something like minus for this animal, and for example also minus for this animal, these are impossible genotypes given these parents, because this animal doesn't have the null allele. So here you again need to repeat the genotype for pups and parents, because there's for sure some misunderstanding. So when you check your pups, look for the Mendelian ratio. This is something that you would expect. This is something that can happen, but we wouldn't expect. So be cautious with this one. And this is for sure something odd, and you need to pay more attention. Redo the genotype to understand where is the confusion. Okay, that's it for today. If you like the video, please share it with some of your colleagues who might find it helpful, and I will see you in the next video.